We're veering off again into our second tangent today. This time not reviewing a book, we're looking at the idea of ghosts and demons and weird stuff like that. Bear with me, it's hopefully going to make a bit more sense. I am, perhaps unsurprisingly, one of those people who does not believe in ghosts. So if you come to me and tell me you've seen a ghost, I'm going to assume you're wrong. That's not because I'm calling you a liar or anything like that, but just by virtue of the fact that I don't believe ghosts exist, you therefore can't have seen one because they don't exist. Therefore, there must be another explanation for it. On the flip side to that, I do believe that aliens exist. I didn't used to believe that, but now I do. We found all these planets, and if you're telling me that out of all those planets, no other life exists, they don't have to necessarily be humanoid aliens, but life on another planet seems mathematically pretty certain. For the record, I don't believe they're here or anything. I'm not one of those UFO conspiracists or anything. I think given the distances involved, it's unlikely that we're going to cross paths with them. But the fact that they exist would seem like a mathematical certainty as far as I'm concerned. Or at least as close to certain as anything is likely to get, mathematically speaking. I tell you that just to illustrate that when I need to change my mind, I will change it. That's my sort of open-mindedness credentials, I suppose, for want of a better word. So I'll have an idea about how something works, and if something changes my mind, I will change it. What politicians call flip-flopping, I just call changing where the facts are, so I'm happy with that. The point of this video, though, is that a very long time ago, I have a weird recollection of a fragment of a conversation I had with my dad, who, if you've seen previous videos, was a vicar. And I recall it being a mention of something about ghosts, and I approached it with the attitude as mentioned previously. And his response was something along the lines of, oh yes, we even have a code word for it. Such and such will ring and say that something has gone bump in the night, and off we go to deal with it. The phrase, things that go bump in the night, is the thing that sort of stuck with me, and this must have been 30 years ago or something like that. And I filed it away under Dad pulling my leg. Moving on from there, I recently watched the original Exorcist movie, which is very good, completely terrifying, but it seems well done. I'm probably not going to watch it again. And this reminded me about this comment that my dad made, and I thought, I must make a mental note to speak to my mum and just double check with her that he was joking. To my somewhat immense surprise, however, I was texting my mum about this, and she sent back, oh yeah, no, haunting is real, and the church even has a diocesan exorcism priest, which is a very hard thing to say. And yeah, basically all that stuff, completely real. Okay. She even went so far as to explain that if something like this happens, it's reported to the diocesan exorcism thing or something. And then, just like the movie, 2 priests have to go and deal with this whatever has gone bump in the night. What the hell do you do with that? With my jaw somewhat on the floor at what I was hearing, and from my mother, so I can't think I can actually illustrate enough how odd it is hearing something like that coming from someone who don't put in that camp at all. I wish I could think of an example. Maybe something like Shakespeare coming through a time travel thing, appearing and he talks like Snoop Dogg or something like that. It's just that level of weird. Anyway, I googled Church of England exorcism, that sort of thing, assuming I wasn't going to find anything because that would be weird. And sure enough, the first entry that came up was Wikipedia, so I ignore that. But then the Church of England does actually have an exorcism area of its website where it talks about having to carry out exorcisms. To be fair, it is very well done. They've clearly thought about how this is going to appear. And they make the point that exorcism does not necessarily mean Linda Blair's head's turning around, spewing acid vomit everywhere, and the weird thing on the stairs. Oh man, that movie's messed up. So exorcism covers a very wide range of things, but it certainly leaves room in there for somewhat supernatural things, even if that's not actually stated. Now, obviously none of this convinces me that it's true, but you do have a problem when your otherwise perfectly normal parents start telling you this sort of thing is a thing. And my dad, being a church insider, as it were, and a vicar, actually, I gather, saw stuff and was involved in it. I debated not even bothering to do this video because it's so unspoken about. I don't remember my dad ever talking about it beyond that comment, that it doesn't, I don't suppose it's used by anyone as some sort of mechanism for trying to make an argument for the existence of God. Make a very weird backdoor one, I suppose, but yeah, it seems like it's this sort of dark underbelly of this nice fluffy thing that goes on with church. And if anything, the church seems sort of overtly absent in saying anything about it, which is, well, I guess that would make sense because you're going to attract all sorts of raised eyebrows and weirdos. And for what benefit, really? It's, I guess if anyone encounters something where they believe there's a possession, then first you call the ambulance and next you call a priest, don't you, if you're that desperate, I suppose. Weird, hellish idea. But I'm left very curious as to what a demonic possession would look like. I mean, for example, was Hitler an arch megapunk, or was he possessed by a demon? And there doesn't seem to be any way to find out which is which, and where the church would see the line between the two. Because, well, I've seen the church does acknowledge psychiatric problems, so a psychiatric problem is not a demonic possession, it seems. But then where is that line, and what does a demonic possession look like? I mean, is The Exorcist maybe not documentary, but is it based on real stuff? That's an even scarier idea than the movie, isn't it? The reason I did decide to make this video, apart from to talk about the oddness of discovering that about your father and parents, both of them, is the Bible has already made several references to sorcery, witchcraft, and sort of magic-y sort of things. Basically non-physical, weird stuff. And I've been sort of dismissing it as archaic language or something, or because it's just, I guess it's inconvenient, it doesn't fit with what how I see the world, as it were. But adding in this bit where my mum says that no, this is a thing, and your dad's been involved in it, it makes it more difficult to just glibly dismiss the references in the Bible. I still don't know what to do with it, but it's just a change in terms of how I need to start thinking about that, I suppose. It's interesting, of course, we can't just make ourselves believe someone. Someone can tell you something, it's like, well, I just straight up flat don't believe that. I don't believe my mum's lying or anything like that. But instinctively, I just can't believe that ghosts and all the rest of that stuff is real. And how you're supposed to investigate one of the best kept open secrets in the world, I suppose. I guess it kind of is that, isn't it? How you're supposed to do anything with that that's outside the realm of science, because I don't think science has come up with anything on it, as far as I'm aware. It's just kind of odd that you're still left in a position where you have to take that at least vaguely seriously now. One thought that occurred is, do you get people who say they believe in ghosts but don't believe in God? Because it'd be very difficult to take them seriously, I think, in the sense that if you believe in ghosts, then you believe in an entirely different realm of existence from the physical one we can see, smell and touch. But then you're just saying that came about as a result of the Big Bang and atoms crushing together. I mean, consciousness is already a problem for science, and you can't make a God of the Gaps argument for it just because God of the Gaps arguments are rubbish and just subject to being disproved later on when something is understood. But there is still stuff there that's already problematic in terms of scientific measurement. And if you're suddenly talking about ghosts and all the rest of it, oh yeah, sure, it's not proof of the existence of God, but my goodness, you're going to have a hard time sounding reasonable if you're going to make an argument that one exists and not the other. Even if it's not the God of the Christians, you're just some sort of creator that's beyond our physical world. I suppose at least consciousness has a shot at explaining itself in terms of a byproduct of complexity and intelligence. But ghosts, I don't know where you'd even start with that. It's interesting that God seems to show no interest, well, so far, in explaining how any of this stuff works. And I get that might make perfect sense. I mean, that idea of just setting boundaries and letting things evolve and see how it goes. Let us discover things organically as we go. But it is annoying having this to deal with now. It's weirdly, it feels almost like my dad's legacy is at stake. And it's like was one thing to say you believe in God, because a lot of people believe in God. And, if you look at things, there's at least a decent chance that is true. But ghosts just goes into that realm of weird for me, and it's a really difficult one to wrestle with. I was talking about it with family recently. My brother is of the camp that it's just all utter crap. But the trouble is that leaves him in a position where either his dad was some sort of con artist and liar, which my brother doesn't believe at all, or he's just utterly deluded, but deluded to the point where he lived his entire life for something that didn't exist, and then died with a smile on his face about where he was going, but actually ended up in a big hole in Beckford. I mean, obviously, maybe that is the reality, and I'm obviously quite aware that it would be a common thing for people to think that their parents were better or less fallible than they actually were. But even accounting for that, for me personally, the fact of my parents' belief in this, whilst this might not necessarily be reasonable to count that as evidence for it being true, it does at least mean you've got to take it a little bit more seriously, to the extent that you at least respect your parents and hold them to be reasonable, rational, sensible, intelligent human beings, which was certainly the case for my father and still for my mother. I think at least it's worth taking vaguely seriously to think about it and take their witnesses as something worthy of your time to think about before you just write off their beliefs, as my brother has now done. If anyone watching this knows anything about it, I would love to hear about it in the comments. But yeah, otherwise my reasonable, intelligent, logical dad evidently truly believed that he was wrangling with ghosts and demons and was involved in exorcism. So now not only do we have to establish if God exists, but we also need to figure out if possessive evil exists and what that even means. Damn.